My goodness, Clay, my word. You've showed up bare-breasted to this podcast.
Hey, man, I'm just trying to waft in any direction I can.
Don't show us your twat. We are here to talk about the Catbird Seat. This is the Something Pretty podcast. We're talking about HBO's Deadwood, and we've made it to the penultimate episode. Clay, it's always a happy time of year when I get to say penultimate to one of these things that we do, because it means we only have one more left, usually, unless we're doing Star Trek, and then there's 600 left after that. But we're here with the Catbird Seat, which... Does that mean anything to you, that title? I haven't thought about this, why it's called the Catbird Seat. Does that phrase mean anything to you? Is it a thing?
It is a thing. I have a vague understanding of what it means. It's, I think it's...
It's an idiomatic phrase used to describe an enviable position, often in terms of having the upper hand. Okay.
Like in a Sylvester and Tweety cartoon.
Who has the upper hand there? Tweety?
Well, Sylvester thinks he does, but it's really Tweety.
It derives from the secluded perch on which the gray catbird makes mocking calls. Interesting. Okay.
Oh, so see, that's the part I didn't know. I didn't know there was a bird called a catbird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makes more sense there.
I think we have catbirds up here, or mockingbirds. Maybe mockingbirds are a type of catbird. I only think that maybe because mockingbirds up here attack cats, so maybe that's why they're called catbirds somewhere else. But the Catbird Seat. So we're up here sitting with our enviable position, looking down, mocking other people gently. All right, well, this is the second to last episode of the series before we close things out, and then we get to the movie eventually. But we're going to take a break. We're going to play the music. We're going to come back, and we're going to break down the Catbird Seat.
You're listening to a podcast that is a lie agreed upon. Join Wes and Clay as they discuss HBO's Deadwood and tell you something pretty.
This is the Catbird Seat. It's episode 11 of season 3 of HBO's Deadwood, directed by Greg Feinberg, written by Bernadette McNamara. In this one, the Catbird Seat, Bullock leaves to campaign in Sturgis. He, Star, and Trixie plan for coming events. Swearingen joins the impromptu meeting in the hardware store. A Pinkerton agent murders Ellsworth in his tent. Harry Manning and Bullock deliver their speeches in Sturgis. Bullock meets a pair of soldiers who are ready to vote as they are ordered. Trixie knocks on Hearst's door at the Grand Central Hotel, raises her dress, and then shoots him. Ellsworth's body is brought to the camp on an open wagon. Doc Cochran removes the bullet from Hearst's shoulder. The doc confides in Swearingen that Hearst did not get a good look at the shooter. Sophia wants to see Ellsworth a final time. Swearingen requests Wu bring in his 150 chinks from Custer City as muscle against Hearst's Pinkertons. So, only one episode left. I don't know how... Sorry, I'm trying to find a place to put the book down as I do this. So, there's only one left after this one, and I think that my major takeaway is the show is obviously aware that the season is wrapping up, and they're sort of getting their ducks in a row and getting the energy going into the series. I find this one to be a how to describe it? I find the energy of this one to be really impressive. I guess there's a thing, like, I can sense that the show is moving on all cylinders, but at the same time, you can start to see like the wheels of the wagon are starting to wobble a little bit. I don't know, but what did you think about this one? I find the energy of the last couple episodes of this season to be like brimming with energy and really unique in a lot of weird ways. Like, just a minor example is like, I think this is the first time that Jack Langrisha's met everyone in the camp and had a conversation with them. And it's weird when you notice that stuff, but it feels like an episode full of moments like that where characters are having sort of conversations that they haven't had all season that you think they might. But at the same time, there's like the production stress is also coming through because I think there are 3 scenes in this episode that redundantly talk about Merrick and Al talking about whether or not Al has read the column in the paper. And so it repeats a lot of stuff too. Like it's clear that the show's production is like at the end of the line and they're running out of the organization of whatever organization they might have had getting to this point. But it results in a really weird, powerful Deadwood episode that maybe is more, representative of the rest of the show than I'm giving it credit for. But it still feels different to me for some reason.
Would my conversating with her or lingering after supper have disrupted the little one's routine on a day that had been disrupted previous? Yes. Already she'd seen a series of people taking up watch to protect that schoolhouse. And how many questions must have occurred to her? Because that is a bright child. What is transpiring that we need guarding from? And what memories must that have brought back of her own dear family murdered in a sudden fake Indian depredation by shitheel fucking road agents? Not solely how would I like to be passing the evening, the like. When I've left, have I given the mother more calming down to do before she gets the child to sleep? Them sort of things is what you have to consider.
Yeah, it has a very weird energy. Things are starting to boil in not very. I think what's different about this than a lot of other shows that have this sort of build up to explosion is that I don't really. There's no one thing that is like what am I trying to say here? Nobody. No one is really like on the same page about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's not like Bullock and Swearingen and all those guys are really that in line with each other. Like Al has the stuff he's doing with Wu, which Seth doesn't seem to know about. Tolliver's acting weird now too because I don't know if he is realizing he backed the wrong horse here or whatever, but
yeah,
it's just there's not like the killing of Ellsworth doesn't it kind of codifies everything, but it not in the usual kind of TV way of like this is the defining moment where we all come together. It's a defining moment, but it's a defining moment of chaos.
Yeah,
that is. I find to be very engaging because so much is going on. Because obviously you've got Seth is out of town because he's still running for sheriff.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't really know what's going on. And then you've got Trixie losing it and going and actually shooting Hearst, which is just as incendiary in action as Hearst killing Ellsworth, if not more, depending on how you look at it.
Yep.
And so it's everything is kind of like it's not a matter of the dominoes starting to fall. It's like someone has just dumped all the dominoes onto the table. And so I really like this episode. Not at the least because this is one of my favorite EB episodes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The way that he rolls into the gem and says, I did it, I killed him. I killed Hearst, and they said, you did? And he's like, well, no, he's dead at my hand or the next best thing, really. And he keeps dialing it back. It's so fantastic. He's such a fucking
Did you
shithead.
see him? No.
Yeah.
Did you see Trixie? No.
But like I feel like that's kind of indicative of what's going on. Where it feels more realistic in a moment like that, in that nobody really seems to have a good grasp of what just happened. If Hearst got shot at all, if he's dead, if he's alive, it's and seeing the way everybody reacts to it is pretty cool.
Yeah, the
except the Langrish stuff. I still don't know what the fuck's going on with that guy.
I'm leaving. Come in.
It's too much. She's too cruel.
Come in.
Brazenly sends the other packing to brazenly install her replacement in the theater.
How was he brazen with the one who left?
No one with eyes could fail to recognize their connection. And now brazenly...
Us recognizing his connection to the one who left does not mean he was brazen.
Fine. Fine, then. I just came to say goodbye.
Must I agree he is brazen for you to not leave the troupe?
He has no respect for art.
Claudia.
He hates me.
No.
I was well received in Denver.
Yeah, very well received.
I could have stayed. I could have let you all go on.
I think you were approached by Millerick.
I was.
Go to sleep, Claudia. No coaches now, anyhow.
He's sort of okay, but his they have the scene with the actresses in this one where they talk about being upset about the other actress being let go, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on with those two. So that's the troupe feels like a good example of it. It just feels like they did not have an idea of where the troupe was supposed to go clearly, and like and I think that that storyline is a good example of in this one of they don't have an end in mind that they know that they're trying to get to. It's not like it's written like The Wire or anything like that.
Sure.
And so when you're getting to scenes where it feels like they felt like they wanted to do something with them, or there was going to be some kind of explanation, or they were building towards it, but they just don't have the time to do it anymore. Like they've run out of runway to tell the stories. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's the negative of this episode, I think, even though I really like it, is that it's thematically interesting because the killing of Ellsworth, as you're saying, like results in this big chaotic feeling in town where no one is really on the same page, and it kind of feels like the energy is building and no one's very predictable. It's like a powder keg that's supposed to go off and something random like Trixie shooting Hearst happens. But there's no sense of this is going to be the plot that sort of wraps things up. And I think a good example of that dialogue-wise is you had mentioned E.B. E.B. when he has the monologue where he finally wipes off the spit from his face.
Mm-hmm. And he's apparently been standing there for hours.
Yeah, he's been standing there for hours. He says, I'm going to fuck you up, and I'm the kind of cunt that you'll let close. Mm-hmm. It's funny because on a modern show, I feel like E.B. would be very pivotal in what happens after saying that line, right?
Right,
like,
yeah.
He would do something because you kind of realize at that point, like, oh, E.B. could, like, that's a totally legitimate thing for E.B. to say because Hearst would allow E.B. to get close to him because he thinks he's harmless, really.
Right.
And it doesn't happen. So it ends up being just kind of a neat little, like, cool line that E.B. has, but he ultimately doesn't do anything from it. And I feel like that's kind of emblematic of everything, although the reason it's not really super negative is because it almost feels intentional at the same time that this is how chaotic the town would be after, the paragon of virtue that Ellsworth is as much as anybody in the series is. Like, Ellsworth is the good guy on the show after he's killed by Hearst. And it feels like the chaos is intentional, but it's also just kind of representative of how the show was made at the same time.
Yeah, it's one of the Ellsworth's death is one of those moments that, well, first of all, very sad. I was very upset by that.
Yeah.
And he's the kind of character who is, he's one of the more upstanding, righteous characters on the show. But he's the kind of character that nobody really pays it. Like, the people who are involved with the story, capital S story, don't really give Ellsworth a ton of time. And so you never really get the sense in the show that he is a highly considered person.
Sure.
Until he's killed. Like, for instance, there's been so many gunfights, so many deaths, so many fights in the street that all feel like they're part of the larger thing, whether it's Dan and Commander Cody, what the hell's his name?
Oh,
Captain
Turner.
Phillips?
Captain Turner.
You know, that feels like a part of the larger thing. Even Seth and Al in season 2 feels like part of a larger thing. But when Ellsworth gets killed, it's the first time where everybody kind of takes a step back and goes like, well, that's not fair.
Right.
Like that's
right.
That's taking it a step too far. You've killed someone who is not involved with this and does
in a fairly
does not
underhanded way
deserve.
too, like assassinated him basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the reaction from everyone seems to be the same, which is like, no, that's not cool. He was not part of this bullshit.
Yep. I think that something else that they do that's kind of interesting. I talked about how Langrisha has scenes with people, and it feels like he's just starting to get to know people. He has a funny energy in this one because he's like he's semi a cartoon character stuck in the town in a lot of ways. Like he has sort of lines of dialogue that are very strange, and he does things like he overly displays the fact that he's not carrying a weapon when he enters places. Like he opens up his jacket all the time.
Yeah.
But in line with what you're saying about Ellsworth, I think that the show, for all of its chaos, also it always manages to stick its larger point in really interesting ways, such as that, like when Ellsworth is killed, as you're saying, the main characters largely don't interact with Ellsworth at this point on the show. Like he was in season 1 talking to Al occasionally, but no one really talks to Ellsworth anymore outside of Alma, and they've been separated for a little bit. But when Ellsworth dies, I think the show does a really smart thematic thing of his death results in everyone sort of collecting at the gem, right? Mm-hmm. And you have this sense that Hearst's attack on on Ellsworth is an attack on the town, and the town reacts by drawing closer at that point. It has that really nice scene where Charlie Utter is standing on the stairs and he doesn't know where to sit. And then he finally sits down with Dan Doherty and Silas, and they're like, they have this kind of lighthearted thing about like, I thought you were just going to stand there forever, and it's like this, it's this nice sort of closing out a scene of the town uniting in the face of the attack on them to that point. And it's almost as if they're realizing that like Ellsworth's death is showing them the true bonds that are part of the community that Hearst doesn't share with anybody. And it's nice too. I mean, the actors are settling into the roles, but it is like you get to this point in the show 3 seasons in and you're like, yeah, a lot of the characters haven't really realized how close they are at this point, Right,
yeah. Yeah, I think that scene at the gem is pretty indicative of that too. Because, like, I mean, the thing that actually made me kind of... well, I didn't gasp at it, but it was the one thing that I was like, oh wow, these characters have really come a long way since the first episode. Was after all is said and done, when Alma actually thanks Al and shakes his hand for helping out, and it's like there's this kind of moment where even like within the world of the show, I feel like Al kind of takes a moment to be like, holy I mean, I don't know if you should be thanking me for anything,
right.
But at the same time,
like, am I the good guy? It's like the opposite of are we the baddies? Yeah.
But at the same time, though, it's like they've come a long way since the death of her husband.
Yes,
they've all become intertwined in a way that goes a lot further than
Al was Hearst in the first season, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think to kind of jump back to what I said a minute ago, I think Al looks at everybody else, all the principal players, and thinks that they've all got it coming in one way or another, right? Mm-hmm. I think with Ellsworth, Ellsworth is the one where he's like, no, Ellsworth was a good dude. He didn't deserve that. And I think that's the thing that it's like when you're at family party with all your cousins when you're a kid, and then inevitably the youngest cousin is the one who gets the football in the face, and you're just like, yeah, maybe we took this a bit too far. You know?
Yeah, that's the that's the kid injury thing. I have 3 boys who they always wrestle. You can't stop them from fighting. You can't stop them from wrestling. But you also
just got to teach them how to bump.
You also cannot. They cannot end a wrestling session without someone getting hurt somehow. You know, and it's like, well, this was inevitable, but this is what we expected to happen.
Yeah.
Terms come clear. If she'd keep her property here, she'll leave. Having first hired as many as Hearst has, and who can kill as well as Hearst do, and ain't disadvantaged too to keep Hearst from killing her, which, by the shots yesterday, and Ellsworth butchered today, means her to understand Hearst will not cease endeavoring to do. But if she'd herself stay in camp, she must sell her property to him.
A very pithy rendering.
It's also tough to not. It's one of those episodes, like, it's hard to see that the end is not in sight. The show does not realize that the end is in sight. Like, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but the show is under the impression that they're getting a 4th season, at least, after this. So the scenes like that kind of, the gem scene feels like the kind of a scene that a show knowing it was going out would have, but it's really more about the town feeling that way than it is about the actors doing that thing that shows will do, which is that, like, they let the actors kind of play themselves in a way in one scene, like, just to sort of show how close they are and have, like, a fun scene with everybody, which is what the Charlie Utter scene strikes me as. But I don't think that's the case here, because they know that they're continuing, so it is more of like a legitimate town building type activity. But I think that one of the things that stuck out to me in this episode was that I did feel that there were a lot of intriguing interactions that we haven't seen in a while. Like Alma and Doc Cochran talk to each other alone, for instance. Alma and Al have a conversation with each other. You have Wu and Al have a conversation again. The Wu, big man. It's very funny.
Hang die, Wu. Fucking hang die.
Hang die.
Wu, Custer City, brings back all his chinks the fuck back to Deadwood.
Woo. Back Deadwood?
Brings all his chinks back, huh?
Woo. Custer City? Back Deadwood? Tuna maga, I go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. 10 days, Swedgen.
I am sorry, Wu. I'm sorry I made you wait. But I want you to bring them now. While you're about your journey, I'll be trying to conceive some practical use for your countrymen's arrival, besides seeming to swell our ranks. So we'll give them guns, yeah? We'll provide them with guns, so any of the slant-eyed bastards know what one is, or perish the thought know how to use one. We'll enhance our prospects.
Guns. Chongguo. Wu. Custer City. Back Deadwood. 150 Chongguo cocksucker. Swedgen.
Shut the fuck up, Wu.
Hang die.
Hang die. Hang die, fucking Wu.
I just feel that it's the same thing as the Charlie Utter scene. To me, it felt in a lot of ways like the show is trying to get its characters to all interact with each other one last time, but that's the energy of this episode for some reason. Whether or not that the show didn't realize it was ending, but it feels like an episode where there were a lot of little vignette scenes between characters that haven't talked in a long time, and I think that's one of the things that I like about it and found it noticeable.
Yeah, I was really interested by that scene with Alma and Cochran.
Yeah.
What I was taking from that is it was basically them deciding whether or not Sophia could handle seeing Ellsworth's dead body.
Yeah.
And that's a really good example of a Deadwood scene where they don't say that at all. They do not mention that once. They are just talking about basically how much trauma she's been a part of in her life up to this point.
Whether or not they're arguing about or debating whether or not she saw her original parent, her biological parents be killed, by the Raiders in season 1.
Yeah, and that is
not providing any closure is the gist of their argument. Like her not seeing her parents might be leaving some sort of lingering trauma that she can't accept the fact that they're gone at this point because she never saw them dead, and they're wondering about whether or not it's healthier for her to see the body of Ellsworth to show that it's over.
As I heard the account, the child was found inside a hollowed out tree trunk, some distance from the others.
Having crawled from the carnage and hidden herself, I'd always assumed.
See, I suppose, rather than Sophia crawling unseen from the carnage, the possibility might exist that the family hid her in the tree trunk and then fled that distance before the murderers fell upon them. For the child to have been found, having been savaged by wolves, those hours later, by strangers, and then taken away, having never seen her family again, living or dead.
And every other show would have just used what you said just now verbatim as dialogue in the scene.
Right, yeah.
Where where Alma would be like, I don't know, I have to think that there's some sort of lack of closure. No.
she would say closure, yes, obviously.
Yeah, whereas this one, they just drop you into the middle of this conversation and give you everything you need to work it out, but you're going to have to work it out, what they're talking about.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and it's, are there any other odd pairings? Like, Jerry and Bullock share a little bit of a conversation with each other.
Yeah.
Hearst and Cochran have a conversation, which I don't think they've ever spoken to each other. So that's kind of an interesting thing when he digs the bullet out of Hearst. It's another great Hearst episode, as they're all great Hearst episodes.
Even in that moment, like Hearst is still working people, right? Because he's telling Cochran, he's like, I don't know why they think that I'm involved with this.
I like his.
I mean, we just both happen to work as miners looking for what is that stuff called? I just can't even remember. I think it's called gold. I think it's called. That's what people call it. I don't know what it's called.
It has this he's like me and Mr. Ellsworth have run into each other numerous occasions, and we did not get along at all. But I am still shocked that people think that I would have anything to do with this. Anyway, are you going to dress the wound?
Yeah.
I like that. Just the show as an example of like what another show would do. After that scene, another worse show would have Cochran storming around going like, "Oh, I can't believe I dressed his wound. I've like, what have I done? I've helped this evil man." But it's the Cochran's whole thing is the do no harm thing about doctors, right. About how he's just supposed to help people, and he even has to help the devil of Deadwood at this point when he gets shot.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Anyone else going on in this? I'm just looking at the
you get some Langrish and EB, which is fun.
What's their scene? I can't remember.
Langrish. So the other actors are waiting downstairs.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And then Langrish comes down complaining about the walls being thin because he heard the gunshot.
Yeah.
But that, I was very confused by it because I couldn't tell what he was trying to get at. And when EB starts whispering about the fact that Hearst was shot, I didn't know what the game was here. If this was something that they do all the time, was it? I enjoyed the scene, but It was a kind of interaction I have never seen between those two before.
They're gossiping without making it seem like they're gossiping. So he's trying to get information. He's just bringing it up how he's kind of bringing it up in a bitching tone about like, I heard a gunshot and it sounded it was right outside my room. What happened? And EB has to say without sort of seeming like they're gossiping or happy about the fact that Hearst was shot in his room.
Yeah.
Did you like the 70 horrors scene where Hearst comes down to the hallway and it pans in on him as Lane Greach is trying to fumble his way into his room?
Yes.
Yeah.
Even that one too, that was, I thought I missed something. For a second I thought, because he hadn't been shot yet at that point, right?
Right. He had Ellsworth's body had come back at that point.
Yeah. So for a second I thought he caught Lane Greach breaking in
into his room.
Yeah, but which doesn't make sense because he just came out of his room. But it was such a quick little bit in the hallway that it was kind of, I wasn't totally sure. I don't know if they were implying that Lane Greach was like eavesdropping or something.
No, I think it's I sort of not doing right. I just
the
think
way he looks at him when he comes out, it feels like Lane Greach just got caught doing something.
Yes, I think it's a character because Lane Greach doesn't know what's happened, but it's a character reacting to what is basically become pure evil in the town. Like there's it's just a very horror movie reaction of he sort of intuitively feels he has to get away from him. Like there's something not safe about Hearst, and that's why he's fumbling to get into his room so quickly. But that's my take on it. Just that Hearst has come in from murdering Ellsworth indirectly, and Lane Greach running into him, it makes him nervous and concerned about his safety.
I also really like that scene with the two assassin guys where, Hearst.
Would you like a drink?
Yeah, out of ceremony and politeness, not expecting either one of them to accept, offers them a drink, and then he goes, "I'll have one." The way he shoots him a look like he's like, "You what? You fucking
you idiot!" Yeah, I'll have one, and he's like, "All right, yeah, it's right over there."
Hey, man, don't ask if you don't want someone to say yes.
I know. Yeah, just keep it to yourself. Keep it yourself in his giddiness of the whole situation. Yeah, it's. Do you feel a difference in I feel a difference in the past couple episodes, maybe the episode before this into this one, in terms of at least the plotting and stuff like that. Did you notice anything about the energy being different?
Yeah, I think this one and the last one have both been really good. And it's a very rickety cart, or I should say the terrain is very bumpy going into the finale. I don't mean that as like a negative. It's a metaphor. I don't really know what it means metaphorically, but you get what I'm talking about.
The horse has died. Your oxen has died, and the wagon is careening into the river.
There you go. It's careening towards Clayton Ravine. I legitimately don't know what to expect from the last episode because they keep talking so much about bringing in all these men and these reinforcements, and I can't imagine this is going to end with like, it's not going to be like the end of The Dark Knight Rises where it's like the cops running up against
back
Bane.
For you. Bullock says that to Hearst. They just start
every single cop running against every single terrorist and fist fighting in the streets. Like modern warfare does.
That's I guess it's not supposed to say that doesn't happen, but I surely wish that it would happen in some version of the finale.
How did that make it all the way through to the final movie? It's so stupid.
I came back for you.
Let's walk every single cop in Gotham City down into the tunnels. Come on, man. You wrote Memento. You're better than this.
Yeah, it was the wagon wheels had fallen off at that point for that series. I think that it's been interesting because it's what the show has not been doing for the third season is this kind of energy movement to scenes, really. And it's something I've really noticed is that Deadwood as a show really doesn't rely on catalytic events for things. It's like it has there is no episode that ends with something happening that leaves you as like a cliffhanger to be like, what's going to happen in the next episode? A different version of Deadwood would have Ellsworth killed at the very end of this episode or something,
Yeah.
And it hooks you into the next one. And Deadwood has more of a penchant for characters will have a conversation about something that's totally unrelated to anything that's been going on, or, Al will monologue to somebody, or you just have a scene of a character walking down the street. But it's something that I've noticed, and I find pretty unique about it, is that it has big events, but I would say you could almost count the quote unquote big events on this show on one hand throughout all 3 seasons. It's like Wild Bill's death.
Yeah.
Walcott kills the girls.
Well, I would probably count the killing of Sophia's family as probably the first one.
Okay, yeah, the killing of the family, because that creates Sophia's there. But it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of super memorable big bang events that happen in the show.
Sure,
it's just kind of it's a different feeling. It's a different tone that the show tries to do with things.
Yeah, I think I think it's in line with the show not really treating itself like a television show and treating itself more like a look at the happenings of a town. And because, very rarely do you get cliffhanger events in real life.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do.
Or I guess it's the and there's nothing wrong, because I feel like The Wire did a good example of that, but there's the cleanliness of it doesn't feel befitting of a town in a lot of ways. Like like the Breaking Bad stuff works because it's very small and like very limited in scope to a couple of characters that can have something happen. But when you're dealing with something like the town of Deadwood, it becomes much more difficult to have one event feel like it motivates everybody in a certain direction.
Well, I think what's great about it is you can have these events, like much like real life. You can have these big events happen and not everybody knows they're happening.
Sure.
So like you could, they don't do this. Not that I remember, but like you could have the death of Wild Bill and then cut to, given the nature of this show, cut to EB and Richardson being like, "What's going on out there?" And EB's like, "I don't know. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think somebody got shot. Go back to work." Like it has that kind of thing about it, where some of these events that are huge plot events, I think, like the death of Alma's husband, which is a big plot event. That was a big plot event for like 5 people.
Right.
Like there's Wu
no
doesn't
one brings
give a
him
shit.
up. Yeah, no one brings him up after that happens, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the show lends itself to that sort of thing, and I think the difference with Ellsworth's death is that he is sort of just he's a guy everybody likes. It's the 2 things I wanted to talk about is I wanted to talk about Cy, because I found his stuff really fascinating.
Yeah.
And the thing that got me the most was Alma's reaction to seeing that he had been killed, and she was running down the street saying, "What did I do to that poor man?"
Yep.
It clearly feels like that he's dead because of her, and is probably feeling very guilty about the way that she treated him, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's that's not the kind of reaction you expect to hear from a character in a show like this,
Yep.
And it's a very raw it's a very raw response.
Yeah, it ties into she was getting shot at in the previous episode, but wasn't really the target of it. Mm-hmm. And Ellsworth was always the mark that needed to be made. But they, because they don't have a romantic relationship, really. It is much more of it's less her husband has been killed and more just her business partner, who sort of like a really good friend who helped her out of a tough bind she was in, like gave her an out through the illegitimate child and then not knowing what to do with her claim on the gold mine.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think at this point there's more there than just that. I think their relationship is complicated enough.
Yep.
That she's not just reacting as though a friend of hers has died. I think that statement she's making is talking about everything that they've gone through, everything that she has put him through, that has ultimately led to him being killed.
Yes.
And she reacts to his death like for someone who she's not really romantically entangled with, she reacts to his death so much more intensely than her previous husbands.
Yeah.
I mean, she was all doped up at the time, but still.
Yeah. numbs the nerves. No, it's true. It's I guess it's the reason that she can have the what have I done to this poor man thing, I think stems from the fact that it's not a romantic relationship, I guess is my point. Like if it's a spouse that was killed, I think there's a more natural, like, emotional response, and the immediate thing wouldn't be to blame yourself for it. But
sure,
I think that the blaming of her comes from a place where they don't have that romantic bond, which is like a little bit tighter than that. It's more, she's more clear-eyed about the risk and the danger that she put him into through various mechanisms, be it Hearst or be it the laudanum addiction that caused him to leave the house and things like that.
Right.
I mean, one of the surprising things from this watch through is they actually don't spend a tremendous amount of time together. They do have a lot of scenes together, but it's a relationship that in my mind was they were in every episode together, and that's certainly not the case about it. But the other thing it's kind of a Deadwood trope is that for dead bodies, I feel like the show ignores people after they're killed in an interesting way. Like you never get a close-up of Ellsworth after he's killed. His body is just seen from a distance being dragged through in the point of view shots that they do when he's like in the back of the wagon and people are coming up to it.
You get one in Cochrane's place where they're shooting Cochrane taking the bullet out of Hearst like over Ellsworth's body.
Oh, is Ellsworth in there?
Yeah, he's in the foreground of that shot.
Okay.
It's like it's not like a full face camera shot.
Right. That's what that's what I mean, yeah.
But yeah, they tend not to do that with people who are killed.
Because it was the same with Bill. You know, after Bill is killed, they pay their respects, but there's no sort of like extended character standing over his casket scene.
Right.
You know?
Well, I think it's a really effective way to handle that stuff because it does. What's the point of having a funeral? It's to give people closure, right?
Yep.
So they can, and if you are, and the closure comes from being able to view the body and make peace with whatever. And so if you're doing that in the show and you are specifically not giving the viewer the closure of seeing this person for the last time, it's very unsettling.
Yeah.
And it feels, it really feels a lot more like they've been removed from existence instead of just, because that's the thing that always bugs me about the modern shows where they do the big death setup episode where it's like, let's spend this side character we haven't heard anything from 3 seasons, and now we're learning all about their backstory.
Right.
I wonder if they're going to make it through to the next episode.
Yeah.
They never do. And it's always plays like a big send-off for the character or for send-off for the actor. And this one, it's like, no, man, you're fucking gone. It's just like real life. You're dead. You're done. You're out.
Yeah. Jim Beaver was apparently very upset by this. It was apparently a very tense, because to be fair, his final scene, he's talking to a dog.
Yeah, it's great. That's a great final scene.
And he doesn't have a good, like a farewell with anybody. And he shot it by himself. And he said that he was very, frustrated by that.
That's tough. Yeah. If it's from a production standpoint, if it's like,
you don't get to work with your friends anymore. Yeah.
Jim, we got to shoot this last scene. Don't worry about what it's about. Everybody's gone home.
Just keep talking.
Frustrating. Yeah. But from the actual episode or the style of the show, I think it's great. I think it's very effective.
Yeah, and his monologue to himself is about it's about helping others and the concern for, he's concerned about Sophia and Alma, and he's talking about others, but it is emblematic of the community theme, right? And the way that Hearst does not represent that. Hearst is entirely self-interest.
And it's also emblematic of how cynical the show can be, because he's the one person who's ever like thought, he's literally the only person who's ever been like, maybe helping others is the right thing to do. And then he gets shot in the fucking head.
Got to help yourself first. You got to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can help others, Mr. Ellsworth. So what did you want to talk about Cy? Are you talking about when he gets all pissed off and starts slapping the whores around and yelling at Con?
After when he sees that Ellsworth has been killed, he has a reaction that's really intense. And it's again, he's not verbalizing what he is feeling. He's just taking it out on these other characters.
I piss hard stole money away to gussy up you fucking cunts. Is what he says.
Yeah, and like it's nothing he is saying has anything to do with the fact that Ellsworth has been killed.
Yeah,
he's just like we were saying before the show started. It's just something that he's probably been fine with 99 times out of 100, and then today is the day that he decides to bear down on it, to let off the steam. But I was very surprised to see him react the way that he did to Ellsworth being killed. Like I feel like this is the moment where Cy. Again, Ellsworth is not one of the players, really, right? He's kind of outside the game. And for Cy, as we've been saying for 3 seasons, every single scene he has feels like he's trying to play an angle or scheme or try to get over on somebody and to move along his place in the game. And this seems like the moment where he finally realizes that game is serious and that maybe he should not be fucking around.
Stand the fuck up! I piss hard stole money away to gussy you fucking cunts up. Starchy bullshit! You fucking pretend. There's a difference between fat-ass snatch and a fucking petticoat.
Come on, Mr. T.
Where are we going? You rummy-faced piece of shit.
I'm just saying.
Just saying what? What was you just saying?
I don't know, sir.
What you been? This fat twat's gallant. Ain't Con the nuts, fatso. Ain't it great to have a fucking beau?
Yeah, I see it as his continuing story or his continuing arc of being impotent in terms of having any impact on things. So I view it as Cy's character trait is when he becomes emotional, he tends to lash out at people who work for him. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's his sort of his reaction to emotion is to become sort of difficult and hostile towards others. And so I think that he's so Cy is reacting to the murder of Ellsworth, and I think that that's playing on both like whatever shred of decency Cy has in him that's irritating him that has happened. And it's also just his sort of realization that he's completely on the outs with whatever is happening at this point. And that's what his quote about like, I piss all this money away to gussy you people up. It's his anger and resentment at the things that he thinks he's doing and no one seems to appreciate him for what he's doing.
Yeah, it's really great because you don't expect that kind of reaction from Cy, and so to see him go like that and then to see him blow up in that specific way and him showing exactly how much FOMO he has for the war that's about to break out. It's a great show.
Have you found, we've talked about it a little bit, have you found Cy to be a unnecessary character at this point? Or do you think that this plot line of being impotent and useless is enough to carry his character for this season?
I conceptually really like it, but I don't think it has really amounted to much other than just sort of like a character study for him, which is fine. But if you're looking for a set him up, knock him down kind of story, then he's kind of a. I don't think much would have changed if he had died when Andy Crane stabbed him.
His plot line in season 4 was supposed to be that he becomes the financial backer of Andy Crame's church in Deadwood.
Oh, really?
And it becomes unclear whether or not he is actually pious and repentant at that point. So it's sort of the hypocrisy of religious believers was supposed to be the theme of it, and like the sort of uncertainty of how deep someone's faith can run, but that was the idea that they wanted to do with him. So
that's interesting.
It's like all things. There are a couple of examples of upcoming stories, and I feel it's like everything that is all stories seem kind of weird to me, until they're on the screen. And I wonder if you had pitched this idea of Hearst in the third season, would I have been like, that seems like a strange idea to me. But I don't know where else you go with Cy, and that does seem in line with his. He had that great scene where Andy Crane came in and Cy had the gun and was like, "Lord gives me the strength to pick up this gun." And I feel it's a continuation of that, basically. So,
I mean, I guess I'm here for Cy Tolliver as one of the righteous gemstones.
Yes, I'm here for Cy kicking ass for the Lord.
Yes.
Anything else about this one? Let's see. So, Trixie shot Hearst. We covered that. I thought that Paul Malcolmson had a funny thing about that. This is from the Deadwood Bible. Malcolmson didn't question the nudity, even though she thought it was odd. Early in her experience on Deadwood, she recalled a crew person who'd worked with Milch had warned her, "Don't pet a dog when it's shitting." Said Malcolmson, quote, "I didn't ask what's the purpose of me being topless because I just didn't ask David those kinds of questions. I always wanted to go with the deepest faith, He wrote the fucking scene. I don't know why the fuck she's got to take her shirt off and she's showing her twat to George Hearst, but fuck it, I'm going to do it." So I did it. And that's it.
I didn't realize she talks like Trixie in real. These characters just rubbing off on everybody.
She's Irish. She's an Irish actress.
Oh, is she really?
So,
okay, that explains that then.
So she's actually on her best behavior in that paragraph. And we'll have more obviously we can wrap up all the characters in the next episode, but Trixie shoots. The only other item, I guess, in this one is the political aspect, right? Bullock is running for office, and he's run up against the votes that have been brought in against him, and he leaves to come back home. We're recording this on election day, actually, today.
We sure are.
Yeah, so I voted earlier today.
I got finished stuffing my local ballot box earlier today.
Yep. And did you have any Union soldiers at your ballot hall?
No, but it did smell like bacon because it was at the Armory, and there was a little cafe next to it that does nice egg sandwiches. So that was nice. Well,
what's funny is you must have the same. You must have the same as me. We're both in Massachusetts, so I assume we have the same thing. It brings up the Amy was wondering. She's like, "Well, how do the elections work in this Deadwood situation? Like, how do people just come in and vote for things?" Right. And
I was very confused to see that he had to go to a whole different town.
Yes, he had to go to like the county chair or whatever. Yeah, Sturgis. So I don't know how their elections actually work, but I guess not much has really changed because, politics aside, you don't have to provide any ID to vote, which I think is strange. You just go in and you tell them your name, and they check you off. And it seems very strange to me.
Yeah. I know it's a very complex argument that comes up when it comes to that stuff, but it does feel kind of weird that you just give them your name and your address and they go, "Here you go."
I mean, just to prove I'm that person would
who
seem
you
reasonable.
Say you are, yeah.
Just so you don't double up votes, or not double up, but if there's a mistake and they accidentally check me off by some random guy before, when I go in, are they going to be like, "You already voted"? There's no proof, it's just odd. I don't know. The whole thing is very it's like a 90-year-old woman with a huge binder of paper in front of her that she flicks through. Yeah, it's very strange.
They're just, you know what? I think they're just happy that anybody shows up.
Yeah, I think so. There was no waits in my line today, and I think ours is just the Worcester. I didn't vote for anything statewide. It was just Worcester stuff. And it's like, I think Worcester gets like 7% turnout or something like that. So it's not particularly good.
What's your purpose here?
What do you mean?
There's no Sioux around here.
Shall I go find some? Ask them to join us?
I'm saying there's no fort and there's no Sioux. Why would they have you bivouacked?
Seems like you got me confused for a general.
Don't be grazing by the windows. Come in and listen, or stay the fuck out of sight.
I guess you got yourself mistaken for a general.
Wants to know what we're here for. We're here for the election. Maybe gonna exercise a franchise.
Time for us to speak now, Sheriff.
Have they told you yet who you're voting for?
Not yet.
Sheriff.
Shut up, Harry.
But I guess it puts you in the Deadwood thing where 200 votes will probably win you an election. It's not like a national thing. You just need a couple votes and you're on your way.
Yeah. There's also the stuff with Jane where she chickens out from going to see what's going on by saying she's going to stay and protect the kids.
Yeah, she protects the kids. Yeah. She knows that she's done pretending, right?
Yeah.
I guess at this point, that's her. She now realizes where she needs to be. The children in the school. Anything else about this one? I don't. Hearst has the you're also getting a sense of Hearst continues just obviously to be very interesting to me, and he has another Grinch looking down on the town scene in this one. Mm-hmm. He has the line. The hell does he say? Let me see if I can actually get the whole thing. When he's looking out the window, he says, "The camp is galvanized. I oughtn't to work in these places. I was not born to crush my own kind." I like that line. To me, it's Hearst realizing that as much glee he gets out of things and how much personal satisfaction he's getting out of this stuff now, he would really just be, as he says, out crushing rock than people in the political sense. I take that quote to mean that he realizes that he's not best suited for like the political and the sort of like Machiavellian stuff that he has to do in town.
Yeah, it just makes him frustrated.
Yeah, it makes him frustrated, right? So he'd rather just be out digging for gold is honestly what he would rather be doing.
It's the same thing that I run into anytime I have to manage a project or when I have to delegate tasks, where after four things that I give to people and I expect them to do, they don't do it. I just go, why am I not just doing this myself? Why am I bothering with this? That was always my weakness in school. I hated group projects. I did it all myself. Which is a tough. I mean, there's no good outcome to that, right? If you're like the leader position and no one does it, it doesn't come. No one's going to sympathize with you and be like, "Well, I understand." Right? I understand that no one else did their job. So you might as well just do it all and get it out of the way. And you'll find things I was told by a friend of mine in high school, from high school years later, that I was always very frustrating to the other class members, team members who were the heads of the teams. Yeah, because I don't even remember doing this, but it sounds on brand. I would wait till the last minute to do stuff, which would be very stressful for everyone else, but then it would end up being really good when I did it. So. She was like, it was so frustrating because I spent a week doing this and then you did it the night before and we still got an A on it. I'm like, hey, you're welcome.
That's efficiency right there. Yeah, no.
And it's also how you set up lifelong bad habits as far as completing tasks. On my end.
Yeah, deadlines are made to be broken, just like rules. No, what I was always a do things early type.
Oh God,
yeah,
never.
You got to get it out of the way.
Nope.
It's the only way you can maintain zero inbox.
When I got to college, when I got to art school, the reason that I well, at least the way I rationalized not doing things ahead of time was that when you're doing like a painting, I feel like if I've got 2 weeks to do it and I quote unquote finish it after 3 days or whatever, I'm going to spend the next 11 days stressing over it and probably ruining it or going back into it and just working it over and working it over in a way that it probably doesn't need to be done.
Right.
Now I'm sure there is a more productive way to do that. Mm-hmm. But to me at the time it was like, well, I'm going to do it the way that I feel like I should do it, because I know that if I had more time, all I would do is just obsess over it to a point that it's not beneficial.
A movie is never finished; it's just abandoned. Is your mentality towards it?
Pretty much.
Yeah. No, I mean, what's because I have no the art aspect is nothing, but like I do remember writing papers at the last minute, and that's kind of funny how we were close to the last generation where that's going to be a problem, is just the churning of words onto the page. You know what I mean? Like, because now ChatGPT exists. You could create a draft and then edit it at this point. But
right, yeah.
A lot of the work for us was just you had to manually type out 10 pages. You know, it was just the work of doing it was the whole thing. And it's not like you were crafting Shakespeare or Deadwood dialogue or anything. You were just like, George Washington was born in 1652 or whatever, and it's like just typing the paper out to make it fill up. But kids aren't going to have to deal with that anymore. It's all there for them. They'll be on more time to TikTok, I suppose.
They're not going to be writing papers about world events. They're going to be doing TikToks where they're just pointing to chunks of text that pop up too quickly for any human to read.
That's right. Yep. It was so quick. The reason it's got 1 billion views is because it was so quick. I didn't realize it was over. I just watched it 5 times.
And they've got some line from SpongeBob or something that's been ratcheted up 3 octaves, so it's faster and more high pitched, and which is funny to, I'm sure, someone, but
never got into it.
And that's how they get across what they know about the Civil War.
Are you glad that we had a discussion about Hawkeye 6 episodes ago when you were saying, who is Hawkeye? Has this plot line been illuminated for you now?
I completely forgot about that.
It's good you brought it up, though, because otherwise you might be at this point going like, what the fuck is going on with this gun story?
Honestly, I probably would have.
Yeah.
I probably would, this episode, have been asking, like, why is Al so pissed off about Hawkeye, and who is Hawkeye?
Who is Hawkeye, and why is he mad at Silas? Yeah. I mean, to be fair,
another plot where Al gets... I was going to say another plot where Al gets mad about a letter he sent to some other town.
I don't think we've seen Hawkeye this season either. Like, to be fair, he's not a character that's been around. Oh, maybe we have. He was in one bar scene, I think, is the last time we saw him. He was in the number 10. But if you are, if you just you don't remember him, it is kind of a strange plot line to be dropping Hawkeye's name into, that all these guns are riding on Hawkeye showing up on time, but we'll see.
I mean, if it had been Hawkeye, the Marvel Comics character, then I would be disappointed that the Deadwood doesn't end with a comics accurate 1980s costume Hawkeye.
It's George Hearst
with his bow and arrow.
George Hearst catches the arrow in front of him, and then it explodes into like a smoke bomb or something like that.
Yeah.
That's the way it always happens.
Yep.
Saying I like you hefty don't mean you couldn't stand losing a couple of fucking pounds.
Hey, I say it every time I look at myself in the mirror.
Saying I like you hefty. All right, I guess that's it. Did you
that wafting conversation was A+.
Didn't I tell you how well it wafted? Couldn't just let him read his fucking paper. I mean, that's another, like, I was complaining about churning out the 10-page papers the night before. Mm-hmm. Imagine being Merrick and you have to do that fucking type print, that tiny type print every day.
Oh, my God.
Oh, go insane with it.
And that's like a first draft.
Right.
Like he was saying, like, can you look at this so I know what I have to change? Why don't you write it out? Yeah. Do your first draft with a pencil and then set the type.
Yeah. You just can't read it backwards, unfortunately. But yeah, what a tedious, unbelievably tedious thing that was to do.
It is amazing to me that books longer than 5 pages ever got printed when that printing press was created.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just
because
so
it's like they're printing Bibles. That's like the first thing they're printing, and those things are like 700 pages.
Yeah. It's just that weird relativity thing, right? Like it beats having to write it 100 times.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's true.
It's just like, but now it seems so tedious. I have the same thing about we probably talked about this. Like I am so removed from old technology that I feel like it's more understandable to me how a computer reads an MP3 file of zeros and ones and makes sound out of it than it is to have a needle dragged along a metal valley and it somehow makes the song. You know what I mean?
No, I have no idea how that works.
It's crazy.
And anytime you see one of those like electromagnetic close-ups of like, this is what a record looks like when it plays, I'm like, this makes it even more like magic because I don't know what the hell's going on here.
It's crazy. That's how technology is, I guess. And the printing press is probably the same.
Fuck must you harbor, fucking Merrick?
I admit to wondering, Al, if you have any further impression of my article.
Didn't I tell you how well it wafted?
If on second reading...
Merrick, it's a good article. Huh? It'll no doubt irritate him fucking Hearst. But I'm wakeful wondering who he's likely to shoot at next. So with regard to that, I've gave your article all the thought I need to.
Who do you think he might shoot at?
I have no fucking idea, Merrick. I doubt it'll be long before we find out. And in the fucking interval until we do, I guess I'll just have to abandon any prospect of finding respite in any part of your rag I can just fucking read without having to evaluate how it fucking wafts. Oh, which leaves me the solace of contemplating the journey and hither of the intrepid fucking Hawkeye and his 23 fucking reprobates to even the odds in the coming combat. Didn't tell you that, did I, Adams? Hawkeye's wired to announce he's on his way. Does that sound likely to you? Or does it confirm our deepest doubts about his incompetence and veracity? And mine in turn about you that I allowed to fucking vouch for him?
Couldn't let him read his fucking paper.
Although with the printing press, I guess there is the idea. You spend say you spend a day.
Yeah.
Setting up a page.
Yeah.
Once you set it up, you're good to go. You could run off 700 of those.
No,
things.
right, yeah. You don't print the pages one at a time. You print 1,000 page ones, and then you print 1,000 page twos.
But still, it is like having a job where every day you have to do a completed jigsaw puzzle.
Yes, yeah, it is. And just like, what were they must have been using like tweezers and dropping those
tiny
things.
Fucking, imagine I would have lost half my letters.
Yeah, it's like
on
Legos.
day one.
Yeah, you're stepping on them like Legos and be like, fucking letter E. God damn it. The man I once was, Al, was not formidable, and I am but a shadow now, and yet I'd be put to use. A decoy, perhaps, a weight to drop on villains from above, is what Jack Langridge says. I guess we're done. Anything else you want to say about this one, or is this it for the second to last episode of Deadwood, the Catbird Seat?
No, I think it was good. I really like this. This season's been really good. I think it's been more... it's been a bit more consistent than season 2, I think, as far as kind of they've really gotten that mix of plot and hangout down really well, I think.
Yeah.
That it's been I can't really think of an episode that was like kind of a chore to get through or anything.
Yeah, I find the energy of this one to be a little bit like jauntier than season 2. I don't know a better way to describe it. Season 2 strikes me in my memory. It always seems like a very dark season.
It's pretty dark.
It is, but it's not that the show wasn't funny back then. But here, I feel like there's a real energy to a lot of the character interactions in a way that there wasn't in season 2. I still like season 2, and I like walk-on stuff like that. But this is a very enjoyable season to get through, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks, everybody. This is Something Pretty, the Deadwood podcast. You can support the show at patreon.com/thepensky file. We'll probably have a couple Westerns up there. We certainly have Tombstone, which is already done. But as we wait, we'll take to repeat myself again, we'll take a break after the season ends. So after next episode, we will not do the Deadwood movie right away. We'll do a couple of podcasts in between there. We'll probably cover the first episode of John from Cincinnati. We'll cover the Hitman movie with Timothy Olyphant, and we'll cover Luck, I think, which is the Michael Mann and David Milch project, just the first episode of that one. And then we'll do the Deadwood movie at some point after a Western that we decide as well. So that's what's coming up. You can get other stuff at patreon.com/thepensky-file. That's it. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Clay, did you have anything you want to say before we go?
We did Unforgiven, right?
We did, yes. So we have 2 Westerns up there that you guys could check out.
Why did we do Unforgiven? Was it just voted on?
Just got voted on, yeah.
We didn't do a Real Ripe, Real Rotten on Eastwood, right?
No, it was I think it was just vote for one of these Westerns that we cover in Unforgiven 1.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good movie. Unforgiven 1, which leads into Unforgiven 2 and Unforgiven 3.
That's right, because you're Unforgiven 2.
Yeah, we're coming up on the end of our Video Nasties run on Rotten Horror Picture Show on Patreon. We've got 2 movies left. We've got Lucio Fulci's Zombie coming in December, and in November we've got Evil Speak, which is a movie where Clint Howard summons the devil through a 1980s computer while he is at military school.
Mm-hmm.
So the movie the British censors didn't want anyone to see.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're wrapping up that, and we're wrapping up Deadwood before 2024 starts. So it's been the year of Video Nasties and Deadwood. This is 2023. Yeah. That's how we'll remember it. That's it. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We will be back with the final episode of Deadwood, the series. It's the episode called Tell Him Something Pretty, which is the series finale.
Tell him something pretty.
We'll see how all the stories wrap up and everything. Do you know anything about the movie, the Deadwood movie?
I know nothing about the movie.
Okay, so
it could take place in Chicago for all I know.
Okay, so I ask you don't know anything about characters in the movie or anything like that. Yeah, just Power.
Nothing.
I think you know that Powers Booth can't be in it because he was dead, but I think that's about the.
I actually didn't know that. Okay. I wasn't sure if he had died before or after they shot it.
Yeah, he did. So he died a couple of years before Deadwood was shot.
That's too bad.
That's it. Thanks everybody for listening.
But thankfully, they've got his brother to stand in, and they've CGI created his corpse to walk around.
It's like Tupac from on the holographic stage. Yeah. No, they don't do that.
Did you see that thing? The thing that was coming out of the actors' strike is that the thing that the studios asked for is they wanted the right to use the likenesses of dead actors for no money.
Yeah, without paying them.
I don't think that was a thing before computer generated stuff. I don't know why that would be a thing now. Like, I imagine if you wanted to use footage or the likeness of someone who was dead in a movie, you probably need to clear it.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well, I assume the argument there is that it already has to exist. So someone owns it and you have to pay them. But if you create it whole cloth, you've created the new content that is yours,
And nobody can own a face, I guess. Not even the person who has that face.
Especially if you're not like an NCAA player or anything like that, right? Because that's always the thing about the NCAA games, right? Or it used to be, which is that
they get paid now.
Yeah, they get paid now. But they used to, the college used to own the names of the players, basically. So you couldn't use the kids' names in college football games and stuff like that. I think that was the case.
I thought that you could, but they
never paid them.
Get paid for it. Yeah,
maybe that's the case. But that would make sense. So it's like that you can skirt doing it because the college owns the team or something like that. That would kind of make sense. That you could actually use their real names but not have to pay them for it. So
it's not like the good old days of original Nintendo when you had like Major
Fat
League
hockey guy,
skinny
Major
League Baseball with like the Seattle the Seattle Supper Clubs. And the Texas Tall Hats.
Mario was always the pitcher, which was just a nice little nod to it. But.
Or like, was it like you'd get the one game like Ken Griffey Jr.'s baseball?
Yes,
that would be just Ken Griffey Jr. and then a bunch of made up names and teams.
Listen, when Ken Griffey was in his prime, everyone else might have been made up and fictional characters.
True. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out featuring all of the great heavyweight boxers of the era, like King Hippo, Glass Joe.
What was the spaghetti guy? Wasn't there? It was like
there was Don Flamenco.
No. I love all the weird ethnic
Bull.
stereotyping. Hold on here. Let me say.
Super Macho Man. Always liked him.
Punch-Out characters. Soda Popinski.
That's Soda Popinski, yes.
That's the best one.
Soda Popinski.
And Piston Honda was the Japanese
that's
guy.
my favorite name. Piston Honda. Fantastic name. There was I don't remember there's an Indian guy.
There is Rick Bruiser.
I don't know that
Great
one.
Tiger.
I think that was Great Tiger.
Yeah, Great Tiger. He looks like Dalzim from Street Fighter, so that must be him.
Does he have a turban on?
He's got tiger pants on. What does his head look like? He does. He has a turban on. Yep.
Yeah, that's him.
Yep.
Piston Honda. Great fucking name.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We will see you next time with our final episode of Deadwood the series. Tell him something pretty. See ya.
I suppose there's some connection between his condition, yours.
That bare-breasted woman who shot me seemed to think they ought to be. Shit! Go ahead, knowing I'd appreciate less enthusiasm. Through the years, that fella's path and mine crossed several times. I never meant him a moment's harm. But natural operation of my holdings and his bad luck brought me to figure in his imagination as some sort of bogey. I expect my attacker was a bawd connected somehow to the man in back before he married so luckily. Likely she fell victim, as he did, to imagining me responsible for the change in her situation. God damn it! Often, because our interests are extensive, people like me are believed the authors of events which may benefit our holdings, when our connection, in fact, is incidental. God damn it!
I have some calls to make. Will your gunman let me pass?
Of course. Don't you want to dress the wound?